Top 10 notable anime aired in the Philippines. Growing up, books were not the first companion most children have. Most of the time, the television serves as an ever comforting friend to kill the time. Even more than 2 decades ago, the cable TV was not a big hit yet at that time, so children would have to wake up early to catch the morning cartoons. Who doesn't miss those childhood days when we were so motivated to rush home from school just so we can catch the newest episodes of our favorite anime series in the afternoon? Many of the morning cartoons in the mid to late 90s are dubbed to Filipino but are originally Japanese anime. The storyline varies, but Western culture, setting, and characters are used in the shows. Some of the viewers may even be surprised to know that their favorite morning cartoon during the time was originally Japanese. However, these days, most Filipinos call these shows as a Tagalogized version dubbed in Tagalog. Even though the story shows blondes, brunettes, princes, and princesses, they all speak in the country's vernacular. The shows gave comfort, hope, and lovable characters that many of the children growing up in the 90s still remember. With all those lovable characters with complex arcs and iconic abilities, it's no wonder these animes managed to capture our eyes and hearts as kids. Walk down memory lane with this list of top 10 classic animes aired in ABS CBN network that every Batang 90s grew up to. 10. Sailor Moon Crystal, the reboot of the popular anime series that debuted last weekend on Hulu. By the power of the moon and his magic tiara, Usagi will become one of the greatest heroes the world has ever known, Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon is an anime which claims to be one of the first anime with a long episode list and has hit great popularity in the Philippines during the 1990s. On 2012, Sailor Moon make a comeback to the Philippine television screen through ABS CBN. The series chronicles protagonist Sailor Moon's quest for a powerful stone known as the legendary Silver Crystal. Together with the Sailor Soldiers, who each represent a different celestial body, Sailor Moon defeats a gauntlet of villains to stop the collapse of the solar system. Most of the series is set in Minato, Tokyo, with episodic forays into other celestial realms. The story begins when Usagi Sakino, a schoolgirl, befriends a talking cat named Luna. Luna gifts Usagi a brooch imbued with a power that transforms her into Sailor Moon, a magical soldier whose destiny is to prevent Earth's destruction. With Luna, Usagi pulls together a group of new friends, whom Luna helps transform into sailor soldiers with the goal of finding a celestial princess and the location of the legendary Silver Crystal. These friends include Amy Mizuno, an intellectual student who becomes Sailor Mercury, Makoto Kino, a new girl at school who becomes Sailor Jupiter, Rei Hino, a local priestess who becomes Sailor Mars, and Minako Aino, a girl who aspires to become a pop star but instead becomes Sailor Venus. The girls awaken with their new identities and are joined by Sailor Venus's talking cat, Artemis. They are occasionally accompanied by a boy from their high school, Mamoru Chiba, whose alter ego is Tuxedo Mask. Heidi. This animation is an older show televised in Japan in 1974. The story is based on a Swiss story by Johanna Spyri in 1880 titled Heidi's Years of Wandering and Learning. The show dealt with the daily experiences and challenges of a young, 5-year-old girl named Heidi. She was an orphan who was put to the guardianship of her aunt, but later on given to her frightening grandfather who lives on the Swiss Alps. Even though the setting was very different for Heidi, she found joy and adventure which helped her cope with the loss and also helped her grandfather to open up to her. Heidi became a good friend to young viewers and also an inspiration. The story showed more adventures and introduced new characters. This was viewed in the late 90s and early 2000 already. The Swiss Family Robinson. The Swiss Family Robinson is a fiction novel published in 1812 by Swiss author Johann Wyss. It chronicles the adventures of a family of Swiss immigrants shipwrecked in the East Indies. Set in the late 1700s, the Swiss Family Robinson recounts the 10-year adventure of Robinson, his wife Elizabeth, and their 4 sons, Fritz, Ernest, Jack, and Franz on an uninhabited island in the South Pacific. En route to Australia, the Robinsons' ship is wrecked in a turbulent storm. The crew escapes in the lifeboats, leaving the family stranded aboard the shattered vessel. The wreckage is wedged between rocks within sight of land, giving the family precious little time to fashion a makeshift canoe in which they make landfall on the nearby island. They establish camp on the beach and, after several trips back to the wreckage, gather enough supplies for short-term survival. The family immediately explores the surrounding area. They build a bridge across a stream, granting them access to the territory beyond the beach. They arm themselves with guns and ammunition from the ship's stores and hunt for food. They retreat from the oppressive heat of the beach to a shady wooded grove where they build a treehouse, and they assemble a small sailing vessel found packed in the ship's hold. Along the way, the ever-resourceful Robinson schools his sons in arcane species of plants and animals, and the devout family prays regularly to thank God for the island bounty. As time passes, Robinson finds endless projects to keep himself and his family occupied. After 10 years on the island, the boys are now robust, confident young men. Robinson marvels at the passage of time and contemplates his mortality. One day, Fritz finds a message attached to an albatross, a call for help soon after. A Royal Navy ship searching for Montrose discovers the island and rescues the family. Having acclimated to their new home, christened New Switzerland, Robinson and Elizabeth decide to remain on the island with Ernest and Jack. Fritz and Franz return to Europe. Robinson entrusts his journals to Fritz, hoping they will be published so they can serve as a moral and educational guide for other families. Charlotte is an anime series produced by Nippon Animation. It was first aired in Japan between October 29, 1977, and May 27, 1978, and is based on an original story by screenwriter Shunichi Yukimuro. Charlotte was raised by her father, a former French nobleman, who is now living on a ranch in Quebec, Canada. Although motherless, Charlotte was a happy girl until her 13th birthday, surrounded by a loving father and many friendly animals. On that day, however, a package arrives from her mother, who was supposedly dead. After Charlotte's father dies, this mother comes to live with her. At the same time, Charlotte meets a strange boy. This is only the beginning of many heartbreaking incidents in the little girl's life. Also in the cast are Simone, mother of Charlotte; Milan, Knight's wicked sister who has also hated Charlotte; Albert, Charlotte's wicked uncle; Marie, an adopted daughter of a French nobleman who has a deep hatred to Charlotte; Uncle Melville, an elder companion of Sandy who is fond of watching stars and was elected as a new captain in Charlotte's hometown; Louis, a sick nobleman who is Marie's fiancé. Harden Mary Lennox recently became an orphan because her parents died from a cholera epidemic in India, so she was sent to live in England with her uncle. However, her uncle is a very distant man who talks to no one, so she is left alone in the mansion with nobody to play with. Soon she meets a friendly servant boy named Daikon and his older sister Martha, and they soon become good friends. Later on she discovers a secret garden and hopes it will bring happiness to her new family, including her cousin Colin who is crippled. Little Prince Sidi Little Lord Fauntleroy, also known as Shokoshi Seti, is a Japanese anime series produced by Nippon Animation in 1988 and was broadcast on the World Masterpiece Theater, an animation staple that showcased each year an animated version of a different classical book or story. The series is based on Francis Hodgson Burnett's 1886 book, Little Lord Fauntleroy. In the Philippines, it was aired by CBN in the early 1990s. The story concerns an American boy named Cedric Errol, more fondly known as Cedi, who at an early age finds that he is the sole heir to a British earldom and leaves New York City to take up residence in his ancestral castle. After some initial resistance, he is joined by his middle-class mother, whom Cedi calls dearest, widow of heir James Errol. His grandfather, the Earl of Dorincourt, intends to teach the boy to become an aristocrat, but Cedi inadvertently teaches his grandfather compassion and social justice, and the artless simplicity and motherly love of Dearest warms the old man's heart. Princess Sarah. In the year 1885, the story follows Sarah Crewe, the young daughter of Radcliffe Crewe, who is extremely wealthy due to running a diamond mine in British-ruled India. She starts attending an all-girls seminary boarding school in London, where she excels in her studies and is loved deeply by many of her friends and classmates. Tragedy strikes when Sarah's father passes away and her family goes bankrupt, leaving her to become a poor orphan. The school's headmistress, Miss Minchin, takes advantage of this situation and makes her an unpaid maid in the school, trying hard to make her life as miserable as possible. However, Sarah, with the help of her friends, perseveres and tries to endure all her hardships until redemption comes at last. When Miss Minchin continues to mistreat her further, Sarah befriends Mr. Carmichael, who wanted to rescue her from Miss Minchin's mistreatment until she meets her father's lifelong friend Tom Carrisford, who lives next door to the seminary. Tom decides to adopt Sarah to redeem himself over his guilt for the loss of her father and to restore her status as a diamond princess. Miss Minchin angrily confronts Tom to get Sarah back to the seminary, but to her dismay Sarah has already been adopted. causing her to return to the seminary in shame as her younger sister Amelia angrily berates her for the mistreatment she had put on Sarah by making her a maid and forcing her to stay at the horse stable, making Miss Minchin emotionally regretful for her actions. Sarah waved goodbye to her friends in the dormitory as she and Becky returned to the British-ruled India for 4 months to finish the necessary formalities regarding her dad's inheritance and to visit her parents' graves by traveling in the cruise ship. But she does not forget when she was poor. She gives money to people on the street. Maybe Sarah and Becky will return to London again after 4 months. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is an anime television series produced by Nippon Animation and directed by Hiroshi Saito, which premiered on January 6, 1980, and ending its run on December 28 the same year. It is based on the well-known and popular 1876 novel The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. The series was broadcast on the World Masterpiece Theater, an animation staple on Fuji TV, that each year showcased an animated version of a classical book or story of Western literature, and was originally titled Tom Sawyer no Boken. It was the second installment of the series, after Rascal the Raccoon in 1977, to feature the work of an American author. This series was dubbed into English by Saban International and broadcast on HBO in 1988 under the title The Adventures of Tom Sawyer at 7:30 a.m. It alternated with the later World Masterpiece Theater version of Little Women. Celebrity Home Entertainment released videos in the United States under the title All New Adventures of Tom Sawyer. A different English dub of the series has been shown in Southeast Asia. In 1997, 2008 and 2014, it was shown on CBN. In 2015 and 2016, a digitally remastered version was shown on the CBN digital TV subchannel Yay. In the Philippines, Tom Sawyer is a young boy growing up along the Mississippi River in the mid-1800s. Since the death of their parents, Tom Sawyer and his academic brother Sid have been raised by their Aunt Polly in a small village called St. Petersburg. Tom is a disobedient boy. He gives his aunt a hard time, ditches school to go fishing in the Mississippi River, climbs trees, and plays pirate games with his friend Huck. Although Tom usually does not attend school, he is quite popular among the pupils. Even Tom's crush, the pretty Becky, grows fond of him. Without a care in the world, Tom leads his friends into adventures. From catching boars or solving murders, there's never a dull day for the intrepid Tom. Thank you for watching.